Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of your favorite tech podcast. I'm joined with my best friend Ayush, all the way from Bombay. And today's episode, maybe you guessed it from the color of my shirt, but it's all about the new Windows 11. The big announcement coming out from Microsoft just a little while ago. So, Ayush, tell me, is it big or is it big?
Aman, it's an interesting one because, look, I know it's been a few days since that announcement, and a lot of YouTubers have done their bit. But the more you try to study it and understand what was their reasoning, what was their rationale, because this could really be, and I'm setting it up, this could be either a pure genius, a stroke of pure genius, a master stroke,
Mhm.
or it could be just another flop like Windows 8, Vista, and the ton of other flops, and now even them getting into mobile devices and stuff like that. But look, Satya Nadella, since he's come in, has been different from all the legacy bosses at Microsoft. He's nothing like a Steve Ballmer. He's nothing like a Bill Gates. He is, well, a very shrewd operator, a smooth operator, and maybe this is a well thought out move, Aman. I don't want to really get into everything he announced, but let's actually let's chat or let's talk about it for the next few minutes, talking about how this could be, like I said, perhaps a masterstroke. Do you think this is a masterstroke? Spell it out on your end in terms of what were the features that really caught your eye, and then I'll tell you why I think this is a branding masterstroke.
Yeah, fair enough. So I think it was. See, as I think all of you guys know, I'm still a Windows user. I love my Apple devices. I have all of the Apple devices. I have an Apple ecosystem, but I still rely on my Windows machine for a lot of my architectural work and also editing of your favorite podcast. It all happens on a Windows 10 machine. So I was really excited when I first saw the announcement, the teaser videos that came out, and I somehow like the design. I know a lot of people are criticizing it and saying that, oh, it's just, it's like what they've done before, right? When they launched, I believe, Vista, where it was all like, okay, they started putting this layer of transparency on things, and people are coming out with sort of the same criticism again. But I think it is a modern take on design, which is kind of nice. Uh, the big thing that I thought was amazing was the you can have Android apps on a Windows machine. Now, that for me was something that was unexpected, but he's basically taking on Apple and saying, well, you want to close your ecosystem. I'm opening it up and letting the user build their
Yeah.
own ecosystem. So
But
for me,
now
that
now
stood out.
now everyone's talking about that, but when for the past week when everyone's tried to cross question that and understand how that's going to work, it's not as simple as, hey, what's up, Sundar Pichai? Hey, my buddy, let's just
Yeah,
get your Google Play
Play
Store
Store.
and take on Apple. This is a little different. You're going to be using it via Amazon. So the way
Yeah,
you use Google is, well, Android apps on an Amazon store. So it's a little complicated
yeah,
the way he's done it. He's also essentially, well, alluded to the fact that they're opening up the Microsoft store. So what
yeah.
that means is it's an open invite, an open house to all developers saying, guys, well, you can set up a lot of cool things over here on our platform. And I think he's going to do away with that sort of hefty
No
commission fee that
percentage. Yep.
Apple and Google do. I mean, minimum 15% is a little far-fetched. It does sort of stifle innovation. And if I'm a young developer sitting in Hyderabad who's a genius at what he does, and if you're sort of hampering me or sort of impeding my growth because I cannot manage to ever go profitable because of something like that sort of a commission. So that's the big boys club. That might be interesting. But I'll tell you why it becomes interesting, right? Now, honestly, he can't take away, well, the Apple customers from the Apple ecosystem because he doesn't have an ecosystem. So he was quite candid in the few interviews he did after the
Mm-hmm.
announcement as well. The announcement had a lot of criticisms, and and some digs at Apple, and this whole new narrative has developed in the tech world,
Right.
where essentially what Windows was all about was this monolith. It was this monopoly all these years. And then Apple, in when they came about selling their Mac computers, they had so many campaigns targeted at Windows and Microsoft for
Yep.
being buggy, for being complacent, for being too big for their own boots. And the whole genesis of Apple was anti-Microsoft, right? It
Yeah.
was the rebellious guy back then. And now we're seeing that if you really wanted to put, well, one or two words, and I feel like a few journalists already have, it's strange that they're already talking about the narrative becoming Microsoft equals to anti-Apple.
Anti-Apple. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that is a smart play. I don't know how he's thought it through, and what his plan is, but you're right. He wants to open it up, and that's great, in terms of
Yeah.
all of us tech geeks and tech enthusiasts, because
Hmm.
that might mean a lot of innovation and cool things happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my biggest complaint right now is my iPhone is never synced to my PC. If I'm on my PC and I get a notification on my iPhone, if by chance I'm now wearing my watch, which sometimes I don't land up wearing it at home, I don't know if I've gotten anything on my phone. So even if there is some sort of synchronization or some option where I can, view at least or get a notification saying that I got a text message, which might not be a text message, it's an iMessage, or, some form of cross-platform synchronization would be really cool. I know a long time ago, um, on my Mac device, and this was the time when I used to use my Nexus, right? I can't remember the name of the software, but I had a third party software that basically almost mirrored my phone onto my Mac, and it would give me all the sort of notifications that showed up on my Android phone. So this was back in 2014. It was a third party app. I actually, since we're doing this right now, I might even have it installed on my computer right now if I can quickly take a look at it and see if it's still there. But yep, it's called Wondershare, I think.
No,
Um,
that's exactly what you're saying, right? Aman, you mentioned design when you opened up and you
yeah,
started the podcast, because from a design standpoint, it's like Apple over the years focused on an iPhone, right? From that mobile device, and built and got inspired to work on its computer line from there. That was the approach that Apple took, and it seemed to work
yes,
because the world moved on in, after 2014, 2015, towards just mobile
mobile.
technology, iPads, mobile stuff like that, right? Whereas the need for a computer was not as glamorous or sexy. Even though it was a need, it wasn't a want. Everyone wanted an iPad, everyone wanted a good phone. A computer was your bare necessity. That said, well, back in the 90s or even early 2000s, 9 out of 10, I was reading this stat, 9 out of 10 computers in the world were running on a Windows interface. Today, even though they do have a monopoly, nearly 70 or 80%, that same stat reads 7 out of 10. So also, you need to understand that ever since Microsoft realized and reassessed, recalibrated, and they became a very cloud-based Microsoft Azure
Hmm.
enterprise service basis, revenue model, they devoted all their resources to making sure companies put their purchase their enterprise plans on their cloud computing platform.
Right.
That became their revenue model, right? They didn't necessarily innovate as much with Windows, or they didn't rely on it from a revenue standpoint. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like, it's similar to how Google doesn't really necessarily have to make the Pixel the
The most
breadwinner for the
profitable. Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
right? Because the business model changed. But that meant that somewhere it was, and maybe inadvertent or involuntary, but a small sort of a sense of complacency. Because if you think about it, at the end of the day, they were taking their, or we Windows users were being taken for granted. And then Apple
Hmm.
went on talking about the ecosystem, and then Android was faltering, but still figuring out an ecosystem in different forms, or at least giving that, empowering other third-party OEMs to come up with an ecosystem, a Samsung or a
Yeah.
OnePlus, and whatever we're seeing within Oppo and all these companies. But just think about it. All the, even something like Spotify started off as a desktop
Desktop
experience.
app. Yeah.
tell me someone who doesn't use Spotify on their mobile devices or on their Android TVs, right? I think Spotify is pretty much a non PC centric
Right.
service now.
Right.
And if you think of all the glamorous, sexy apps, I mean, they all have an app approach, a mobile app approach, and that's where we are seeing the innovation. That's where we're seeing cool things, the things you can do with touch,
Yeah.
with the camera system on this, with augmented reality. That's where we're seeing innovation. So I feel like, yeah, Windows, of course, is that bare minimum where you get all your work done. But from the design standpoint, I found it interesting, and you mentioned it as well. If I was to, as a layman, look at it saying, okay, look, it's Windows is Windows. Since Windows 95 XP, it's all looked
Always the
similar
same.
to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
start functionality, everything. They've moved it to the center. The entire feel looked a little bit more like a touch-friendly tablet feel. I
Yes.
could I could
Absolutely.
imagine it was a tablet OS as well.
Hmm.
So that's some sort of convergence that they've got something in mind, and they're open to working with Google. They're open to working with Apple for FaceTime. So they're already working with Amazon on the Play
Yeah.
Store. Look, we've seen, Aman, what happened with the Samsung Galaxy Watch, right? No one would have imagined that that would be Google's flagship product for this year. And collaboration is the name of the game, because yes, I want to ask you this question, right? Do you think, now we know we talk again and again about the ecosystem, but do you think like Apple, having built this crazy cool factor for themselves, is making these guys a bit jealous or FOMO?
I think they are, but here's the thing, right? And it's something you said it even before, that Apple can do it because they have a phone, they have a tablet, and it's all being done under one house or one roof. Whereas when it comes to Microsoft, it's not the case. We know what a big fail their mobile devices have been, or their mobile OS has been. So I think this is Microsoft saying that you can actually build your ecosystem around your Windows, just around Windows software, and not necessarily like Microsoft hardware. You can go and get one of those Lenovo Yoga folding laptops, which is touchscreen. And like you said, right now, that their new Windows 11, it feels very touch supportive. It feels very iPad like. And this is me also saying that they're actually thinking of it in a way that we want Apple to think of their iPad, where it's one Mac OS across their iPad and their Mac line.
That's true.
And Windows is going to say, we're actually doing that. We're not giving you a separate
That's true.
tablet OS, which is going to be very restrictive and unintuitive.
That's so
And
true.
it's going to be something, that's going to, I think,
You're right.
change
You're
Apple's
right.
thinking.
You're right, because that's a very relevant point. I mean, I didn't think of it in terms of it serving as a stimulus to get that response. But already we've discussed this. Like, we've used the Surface, and the experience on the Surface and any other Windows PC or laptop is the same, except I get
Yeah.
touch. Now, can touch be made better? Yes, of course. Can the interface merge better? Maybe that responsiveness could be better. But the truth is, the OS is the same. If I get a really
Exactly.
high spec based Surface, or a high spec based one of these Lenovo HP types, at the end of the day, I could do my coding on it. At the end of the day, I could play my games on it. At the end of the day, there could be a gaming PC, which could be mobile gaming, Stadia
Yeah.
friendly, Xbox friendly, and also going crazy as a gaming PC by itself. The ones
Yeah.
we see, it could be touchscreen. And the fact that they are open to innovation might spur a new set of fanatics for
Yeah.
the whole brand.
You
And I
know,
think I
there's
think
a
that might really help.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a really interesting TV ad that shows up. I think it comes up like on YouTube or wherever I land up watching a little bit of television. It's a little kid who, I guess he's like a middle schooler, and he has a Microsoft Surface, the ones where you can detach the screen
Yeah.
and make it a tablet.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is clearly Microsoft, beating down on Apple, but he says that he basically has one of them here, and then he has an iPad out there, and it doesn't have a
Mhm.
magic keyboard, and he's trying to make it stand, and it just, it falls because there's no kickstand, there's nothing. And how much ever we love Apple and we love the beauty and simplicity of their products, there is something I think that Microsoft is doing here by giving you the same OS across a tablet
That's right.
and a laptop and a desktop, all three
Yeah.
devices having the same OS. There's something to
If
that,
they
and
crack,
that's
i- if they crack that partnership with Android on mobile, maybe some crazy stuff could
yeah,
happen. You're right. These magic keyboards, even if that kid in that commercial you're talking about was trying to balance it, well, it's okay for them to take a dig at it because, well, the
yeah,
Surface comes as one device, as
one
one holistic
device,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you can take off
This
your screen
yeah,
like
this cost me $300 plus, $350
extra.
for just the keyboard. So yeah, Apple does that. And also, what's interesting is, when you said that, I thought, Aman, does that mean Team Apple will be keeping one intern on the job watching them? I'm joking, but a team watching Apple saying, watching Microsoft saying, okay, how does this shape up? How soon will they give us a kick on our backside to listen to Let's Tech About It, listen to Aman
Yeah,
and Ayush, and perhaps make Mac OS more touch friendly, or make iPad OS more
Mac
Mac
OS
and
friendly.
PC friendly? Yeah. So
Yeah,
so my point is that, strange, because after we did that Let's Talk About It podcast, on the episode on the iPad OS and
yeah,
stuff, a week after that the world was talking about it anyhow. And you'd be surprised because Apple had the original video of a kid with a keyboard and an iPad, which was their original ad playing in the lawns about how
yes,
the
yes.
iPad is your next computer and how the
This is
iPad
your
should have
new,
been your next
yeah,
computer. That was the original commercial. That, by the way, on YouTube, run by Google, that has been made a private video by Apple. You can't see it. You and I can't see it. Because they
yeah,
realize that we've given you M1, and then people will start making fun of us saying M1
yeah,
iPad,
yeah.
but the M1 iPad is powerless. People are returning the M1 iPads
Mm-hmm.
because they're saying there's no point, especially the
Yeah,
13-inch model.
yeah.
So you're right. Maybe this is what we need. Maybe Satya Nadella is going to push them
Push
into
Apple.
giving us what we need anyways.
Yeah.
And
You
in the
know,
meanwhile, if we see that uh, interoperability and compatibility with Windows, with PC, with Touch, with Android or Amazon, and then a holistic interface to take on Google TV or Apple
mm-hmm.
TV, I'd be interested. I'd really be interested.
Yeah, when you were talking earlier, like when I bought my Mac computer, my laptop, right, in 2014, it was actually because I was thinking, is there a way I can completely move away from Windows and Microsoft? Because, I was using Windows 10 at the time and it was just the same damn thing. And I'm just like, well, Apple is giving me something better. It's an ecosystem, everything will sync up. And that was one of the reasons I bought my laptop, thinking like, okay, maybe this is my time to shift. And, you know, maybe it was not meant to be because I couldn't do it because a lot of like the software that I use for, my day job as an architect is not compatible with Mac OS. So I couldn't make that move. So I always continue relying on my Windows PC for a lot of my software and what I make money with. So but that being said, at the same time, like coming to today and what you were saying right now, Apple, I feel like, is still like relying on the fact that, oh, we're Apple, we're going to sell no matter what. And I think that mentality is lessening, it's reducing. And this is going to, I think, reduce it even further because now there is something that maybe can actually potentially challenge Apple. And Apple hopefully will realize sooner rather than later that they can't just rely on the clout or the name or the sort of what's the right word for it, the credibility that they have built over these years. They still need to serve their customers. And I know there's maybe just a small percentage of us asking for Mac OS on an iPad, but think about it. Like if you had the same software across different devices, I mean, that's just automatically synced. You don't even have to do anything more than anything extra to sync things together because it's the same damn software.
No, you're right. I think these are exciting times to be alive, and it sort of brings you back to some of the old, I don't know, mythology sort of sayings, and some of the things we've learned in even Hindu mythology and stuff, right? Which is, little bit like karma, or for a more general audience, it's like the sands of time or the circle of life. Because when you thought you were the big fish,
Yeah.
well, the underdog eventually came up and said, "Hey, man, your time is done. Apna time aa gaya, and now we are the big fish." Similarly, that changes, and there could be a third party coming in, a third player, or the second guy becomes big again one day. So I think these are exciting times to be alive. Windows 11 is coming. Windows is changing. Satya Nadella says this is the start of a new
New
era for
era.
Microsoft. We are excited because, well, this might just be what Microsoft needed. This might just be what the tech world needed. This also might be what
What-
Apple needed to understand what they're doing wrong with Mac OS and with iPad OS. I know they
A
want to make
kick
money, and I
on
know
their
it makes
ass.
business. A kick on their backside is what it is. And I feel like, well, it augurs well for the future. October is when all of you will be calling your IT guy up in office saying, "Bhai, can you please install
Wait.
Windows 11 or the automatic update, or will my hardware support it?" And those questions will begin, or will your company's software and stuff work on it? So they're fun times to be alive. It'll ironically also go live around the same time that Apple, well, makes iPad OS and its new software updates go live. So interesting times to be alive. This is what we want to bring you on Let's Talk About It. It's a small headline which sort of got lost in a barrage of other news stories from around the world, but it is a relevant headline. Remember it. Remember you heard it on Let's Talk About It. Windows 11 is coming, and it might not only change Microsoft's fortunes, maybe that's a small part of the pie. It might actually change a lot for the tech world and us tech geeks in particular. This was Let's Talk About It. Stay tuned for more. Aman and I will continue chatting about things we love. But for this episode, you have to give us feedback on Let's Tech Podcast at gmail.com, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Shout it out from the rooftops. Put, well, a message on Elon Musk's spaceship, or if Richard Branson makes it earlier, and put it on the moon and Mars and in space, that this is the podcast you need to tune into. Aman, thanks for joining me. And for all of y'all, goodbye for now.